Hey there, rock and roll podcast fans. This is Mike Hoban. Welcome to Rat Tales, the podcast that brings you the music and stories of the Boston rock scene that grew out of the mid-'70s at the Rat and some of the other hellhole joints, each with their own sick charm.
Nothing can be said about the bird brain in your head when the metaphor is dead. The peacocks from the west put migration to the test. Driving 66 for another rabbit from your bag of tricks. You brought the rain, then it rained some more. I built a boat, but there's only one oar. If the ferryman is blind and the river won't unwind, it's just a card game in your mind. Don't stop to see what you won't find. See what you won't find. Any given day. Interplanetary tension, fever, water, full suspension, starfish, deathwish, pharma, karma, spaceball, dance hall. It's hard to comprehend, but if you stack them end to end, your enemies become friends. Just another concept you can't defend. A concept that you can't defend. Any given day. Tomorrow slips away.
Welcome to Rat Tales. Our guest today is Jon Macey. He first made his name as the founding member, singer, songwriter, bass player, guitarist, one of the early pre-punk rat bands, Fox Pass. Went on to New York to join Tom Dickey and the Desires. Played with The Score, Macy's Parade, and he's still making music today with the Hummingbird Syndicate. So thanks for joining us today, Jon.
Thanks, Mike.
Good to see you, man. We always try to do the backstory on people, and you and I were talking yesterday about, when you were a kid, what your influences were, but I think you got a really interesting story. So you played the accordion, and you actually played in an all-accordion orchestra.
Well, remember, accordions were actually popular until the Beatles. the Beatles got rid of accordions, but yeah, so accordion orchestras were actually not that uncommon. I was like 8 or 9 years old.
This is in upstate New York.
Upstate New York, yeah. Learn how to play accordion, they put you in an accordion orchestra. So by doing that, I learned how to read music, and I also kind of took up the piano on my own, similar to the accordion. Didn't have a piano, but I would play it at school or something. So I learned how to play like rudimentary piano. And then, like just about everybody else my age, when the Beatles and all those bands happened, I started playing guitar.
Did that have anything to do with the fact that you're probably more likely to get girls with guitar?
I was a little
Than an
young for
accordion.
girls, actually.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. What am I saying? You were
Yeah.
probably 6 years old when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan.
well,
Okay.
yeah.
I was 8, so.
I didn't really think about that yet.
Thinking about catching frogs and putting them in a jar.
Yeah.
So you started playing the accordion when you were a kid, and then the Beatles come on, and that just changed your whole focus on what kind of music you were listening to.
Yeah, I mean, my grandfather in upstate New York was a country singer, country bass player, square dance caller, and the accordion was big in those bands too because of polkas in upstate New York. I mean, so music.
Big Polish population.
Yeah, big Polish population mixed with country music. So that type of country music from that early, mid '50s type. I mean, I wasn't alive for it, but that's what my grandfather was doing, and he made radio records, acetates.
Oh.
So I heard all this stuff when I was a kid. So my first real exposure was my grandfather's music. So Hank Williams, all that kind of stuff, Ray
Hank
Price,
Williams.
plus the polkas. And then, songs like Harbor Lights and Sentimental Journey, Doris Day. I mean, seriously, because I was playing accordion. So this kind of music, was an influence on me, along with country and along with Frank Sinatra, who, of course, was, my father's big thing, Frank Sinatra.
Hey, you learn a lot about musical structure that
Yeah.
way too, though, right? It's not. I mean, you don't just unless you're playing like straight up like punk, the first thing you ever heard. Everybody comes from a background of like some sort of nice structured music.
Yeah,
my mother
so
was a big piano
huge
person.
influence on me because song structure, lyric, melody was already ingrained in me before I ever tried to play rock music. And it's funny, in playing music with people through the years, some people, I'm a rocker, whatever. I would always say, well, I never really thought of myself that way. And, people would think I was being funny. But it's true. I have never thought of myself that way. I'm a songwriter. I don't really consider myself a rocker, if you know what I mean. Even though I've played in rock bands, songwriting to me is the number one thing for me. Of anything I can do, songwriting is my prize, if you know what I mean. It's the thing I care about the most. And for me, there's no getting away from those influences. So then, right, like just about everybody I knew, that everybody had teenage bands, playing in the churches, playing in the teen centers, playing in the high school dances. And so I was doing all that. I played bass and I played guitar. I played organ. The reason I played bass, though, is because there wasn't that many bass players.
Yep.
It was that phrase where, you had, the Rascals didn't have a bass player. The Doors didn't have a bass player. I mean, they played them on albums, but on live, the keyboard player played bass.
Right.
Yeah, so there was a lot of those high school bands, the same thing was going on. They had the Vox Combo Continental organ, guys playing bass with the black keys, and I thought, being the smart guy that I am, well, if I play bass, huh?
I always get a gig.
I'll always, exactly, and it was true. So I had a Fender jazz bass in a basement. I was the king, 14 years old with that stuff, so... Yeah.
So what kind of bands did you play when you were 14? Because I know you formed Fox Pass in high school, but I mean, so let's talk a little bit. What'd you do? What was your early band experiences like?
Well, the cover bands, playing the top 40 stuff, which was good stuff then.
Yeah, really good stuff.
Yeah, so I played bass, I played guitar, and then, I decided that I was really more of a folk singer, and so I stopped doing that, and I was playing acoustic guitar, and I was very into Bob Dylan and Tom Rush and all of that stuff, and that was all huge around Cambridge, and I mean, by this point, we were living, down here. I was living in Arlington.
You moved to Arlington when you were like a teenager or something?
Yeah. So Cambridge, of course, is right next door. Harvard
Yep.
Square, all the Cambridge Common.
Straight up Mass Ave.
Yep, Cambridge Common concerts were huge. Everybody played there. My first big show is I talked them into, because they used to put folk singers on between the big acts on the Cambridge Commons.
Okay.
This is how loose it was back then. I mean, I was 16. I walked up to this guy's name was Robert Gordon, not the rockabilly guy.
Not the Robert Gordon.
Yeah, Robert
God
Gordon
rest his soul. He
from
just-
Polyarts Productions, and they put on the Cambridge Common concerts. I walked right up to the guy and I said to him, "Can you put me on between?" He did it. I mean, and I really wasn't very good. I certainly wasn't ready to play something like that. I stood up there going, "Oh my God!"
With like hundreds of people.
Yeah, yeah. But I had a lot of moxie, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so then
Chutzpah.
that got me the idea of forming Fox Pass, which actually started with as an acoustic duo.
Is that you and Mike?
Mike Roy.
Mike
right?
Roy. Okay. Mike.
Yeah. So he was in Arlington High School too, and we were an acoustic duo as Fox Pass, and we played the Cambridge Commons as Fox Pass as an acoustic duo. And the idea came by seeing the Modern Lovers, who played the Cambridge Commons a lot. In fact, I saw Jonathan Richmond play there before he had the Modern Lovers. He just played by himself.
Now was he folkier?
No, he was
or-
up there with a Stratocaster and an amp,
Oh,
slamming away, doing Roadrunner and all those songs by himself.
really?
Oh, yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So I walked over to him because Roadrunner sounds like Sister Ray, the Velvet Underground.
Yeah.
And I walked over and said, "Hey, man, that sounds like Sister Ray." And he goes, "Well, I don't know. It sort of." He knew it sounded like Sister Ray, but it was good. It was cool. So then he got the Modern Lovers, and it gave me the idea that I should have a band too.
And that's how you're still in high school when you
Still in
formed
high
Fox
school,
Pass.
yep.
Tell people how you formed the name Fox Pass, because I never got it until I just read something recently. So.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, you smoke a lot of weed.
Yeah, that'll
And
do it.
and I being so damn clever, faux pas, the French phrase faux pas, or public error. I thought it was. Actually, I was writing a book.
When you were 16?
Yeah, I never finished it, and it was all about the hippie days.
Okay.
And one of the guys in the book was Richard Faux Pas, and they called him Fox Pass.
Oh,
So, in my book, so I used that as the name of the band. Nobody ever got it. I mean, through the 70s, I'll tell you, nobody. Once in a while, we got a big write-up in Rock Scene magazine once. We got a lot of press.
Yep.
And they said, Fox Pass, get it? But nobody got it. And then we got a big review in Playboy magazine once, one of the top 5 bands in Boston.
Really?
Yeah, Playboy magazine. They did a lot of music stuff.
yeah, back in the day.
Yeah, so the guy said, Fox Pass, I'll never forget this, as its clever name implies, is a sophisticated blah, blah, blah. But it didn't say what it meant, as its clever name implies, but never actually said what it meant. So we used to make up all kinds of stories. Kind of silly. But yeah, Fox Pass, we basically emulated the Modern Lovers. We got Michael's brother John on bass, this guy Ricky LaCentra, I'm still friends with everybody, on the drums. And we were essentially, we wrote our own songs, but we were sounding like them. And we also...
So just some of the songs I remember listening to, like Laura,
Yeah.
which sounds, I think Laura's the one that sounds straight up like...
Laura, you're my New York girl. I wanna sing this one for Laura, a precious song for Laura, a New York song for Laura, upon the sidewalk. Yeah, this one is for Laura. I met her in the darkness, walking on the outside, upon the sidewalk. Laura, my New York girl. I say your name 1,000 times, it's just so pretty, girl. All my dreams, all my life could be just yours.
Yeah, so you had a couple of, one was Laura, and the other one was something about a jerk.
Some kind of jerk.
Some kind of jerk, yeah. Some kind of jerk sounded like the sort of like Lou Reed and the Modern Lovers had a baby.
Yeah.
It's a great song, so hopefully Lenny's queuing that up.
This guy trying to sell me a sports car, feel like such a schmuck now. Always running down the street crazy, running out of luck. They left me out here alone. myself. I got no friends I can own. I just stand there throwing rocks at their house.
Yeah, so basically, you're right. It was that. I mean, the Velvet Underground. You know, I came into it through a side door. You know, because they were gone. But some people I knew had played me the third Velvet Underground album. And so that also, you know, the third album is more folky.
Okay.
So that's the first Velvet Underground.
Now, who's on that in the third album?
Doug Yule's Cale's not on it.
Okay.
But that's the one with Pale Blue Eyes and What Goes On, and those songs are on there. But so that was my entry point, and then the Modern Lovers and that together, lyrical. So to me, it wasn't that far off from folk, Bob Dylan and that stuff, because it was lyrical.
Very lyrical, and it's all stories. I mean,
Yeah, so
Modern
stories-
Lovers, I mean, they're demented stories. Someone who's stiff glow probably, but
Right, but that's so it made sense to me that I could do it.
yeah,
Because I didn't see myself again as a, especially, you know, when you're talking about the early to mid 70s, prior to any sort of new wave punk thing.
yeah,
You know, rock music was what? It was, you know, Foghat, you know, Humble Pie, Black Sabbath, Led
Foreigner.
Zeppelin.
Those, I mean,
Well, they weren't around yet.
Oh,
But,
they weren't,
yeah, but the
okay.
guys before, the Foreigner guys were around. I forget what they. But you know, that was hard rock music.
yep,
And I wasn't that kind of singer,
no,
so I didn't think I could do that kind of music.
yeah,
And so then the Modern Lovers, Velvet Underground were more like folky singers in a
Yep.
rock band. I said, oh, wow, okay. So that's what I was thinking. So we were, you know, right, we were emulators big time of them. And we also played the Cambridge Common concerts as Fox Pass, as the band. We actually played the last year of it. That was 74. We were the last band, actually, to play the Cambridge Common concerts, Fox Pass. We
interesting.
played the very last show. They shut it down. You know, they finally shut it down because of all the, you know, the too many people, and Cambridge decided they didn't like it anymore.
yeah,
And they moved it to Herder Park over on
Brighton.
In Brighton.
They still have they still have shows over there.
Yeah,
now.
so that's where it moved to, and that's also part of our legend because we were the headliners. So we were very young, 18, 19 years old. But we got a lot of traction fast for some reason.
Any idea why that happened?
I think it's because we both went to Arlington High School. It was a big school. Arlington's a big town.
So you got a big following just from your
From the
own.
high school, yeah.
What was
And
it like going being in
and the
high
drinking
school while
age
you were
was
playing in a cool
18.
band?
Well, see, I got thrown out of high school, so I was no, I got thrown out of high school, so I graduated high school late. So I was actually playing clubs when I was still in high school. I was 19 when I graduated high school because I got expelled from school. I had to go back to bad kid school.
What did you get expelled for?
Well, you know, I don't know if this is
This is not a family show.
well, it's for swearing at teachers and
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Really?
stuff like
You're
that.
such a mellow guy that I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you are now. I mean, I know
But-
there's
but-
a lot more to the story.
Yeah. But so because of that, because Michael Roy is a year younger than me, I was a year older at that age is older.
Yeah. Oh, it's
And so
huge.
the drinking age became 18 in 1972. I was still in high school. We started playing in nightclubs and at 18 years old. And then all the Arlington High kids, as they graduated, could all go to the clubs. Plus, they really weren't carding anybody.
No, nobody's getting caught.
Yeah, so such a big school. We had that like built-in crowd playing Cambridge and Boston right next door, right?
Yep.
So then it just boom, boom from there. We played Herder Park, and we were the headliners. And the two opening acts. This is a sort of a funny story. The first one was Harlow with Tom Schultz.
Tom Schultz from Boston.
Well, yeah, it became Boston. And the second one was Richard and the Rabbits with Rick Ocasek, Ben Orr, and Greg Hawkes.
Oh, jeez.
And we were the headliner. What I never really understood back then is these guys were a lot older than me. I mean, the Cars guys are 10 years older than me.
Yeah.
So I was young, but I didn't think of it that way. You know what I mean? So I was quite impatient in a certain way. I guess you're really impatient at 19 and 20. Whereas these other guys had been around already. So they were much more
You didn't know any better then, is that what you're saying?
Well, I didn't, and I
Yeah.
wasn't going to ask any questions.
And if you got kicked out of school, you probably had like some sort of drive too.
And also, wasn't really an ask for help kind of guy.
No, no.
Yeah, I wasn't like going to ask questions, or advice. So I just went on my own steam. But yeah, so I mean, so that's we kind of went up fast. So the whole, we talk about, I was the Rat Tails talking about the Rat. We were playing all over the place prior to the Rat, and there were people playing. I mean, the Scolletta was there. It was
Yep.
there for many years, but it was like a cover band place before Jimmy Harold bought the place. There was a booking agent called Mickey O'Halloran. I don't know if you ever heard his name.
Yeah, I definitely know his
Yeah,
name.
he was a real player,
Yeah.
and he actually had a lot to do with getting all the original bands in the Rat, including us. But he booked the Boston Club, which became the Paradise.
Yep.
The same room, same place. Katie's, Oliver's, which I guess is Oliver's again now.
was that?
Cask and Flagon on Lansdowne Street
Really?
behind Fenway Park. I think they call it, it's Cask and Flagon, but they say Oliver's now too.
Oh, I did not know
I mean,
that.
Bruce Springsteen played there.
Yeah.
You'd play these clubs, you'd play 6 nights.
Yeah.
Actually, that's also another legend. That's the last gig that the fake Velvet Underground ever played.
Is that when Willie
Well,
Alexander
he
and those guys
wasn't
were
even
there?
in it anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was still Doug Yule.
Okay.
Yeah, he was out touring clubs. So the very last series of shows the fake Velvet Underground ever played was in Oliver's in Boston.
Oh, that's funny.
I sat there every night with Doug Yule because I was such a fan, asking questions. He was really a nice guy, super nice guy, especially to somebody like me. Hey, tell me the stories. I think about it now. It seems funny because I would never do that now.
Yeah. Well, you had a different kind of energy.
I
then.
know too much. So when you know too much, you're in trouble. When I walk up to Bob Gordon for Polyarts and tell him to put me on the Cambridge Commons, I couldn't do it now.
Yeah. Really?
No, I couldn't do it now. I know too much.
Oh, we were talking about booking gigs now.
Yeah.
What a pain in the neck it is now
I
just to
know.
get booked around town.
It is, but I'm just saying, if you know the business, then you know it's almost impossible to do something like that. So if you don't know it's impossible. I wish I could get all that back. Because then you learn stuff, and when you learn stuff, it's not the same. But yeah, so Mickey O'Halloran was booking all those clubs. There was a place called The Box. It used to be the psychedelic supermarket. We played there. We played a
Is
lot.
that downtown?
It's over by. It's on Comm Ave where B bought all the property.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a movie theater there, and The Box was right there. It was called the psychedelic supermarket, then The Box. It really was a box. We were playing shows with people like the Kids, not the real Kids, the Kids. John Felice and Mr. Kurt.
Yep.
Was in that band.
Mr. Kurt from Prestige.
He was in the original Kids.
Okay.
Before they were the real Kids. And the Sidewinders with Andy Paley and Billy Squire, they were a pretty hot band.
Andy Paley went on to become a producer, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
and of course
In
Billy
New York, right?
And Billy Squire become Billy Squire.
Billy Squire.
But the Sidewinders were a hot band, and so we played with them. And it was a place called Sandy's in Beverly. It was a jazz club that started putting on rock bands, the Modern Lovers, the Sidewinders, Fox Pass. Again, we were younger than those guys, and we didn't have the experience, like savvy about the music business. And so by the time the Rat hit, we were already very popular. We played the Rat July of 1975. Really, the original bands had just started playing there. Not many people had played there yet.
Now, what were those bands?
Thunder Train.
Thunder Train, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who else played that early. Not too many people. They all played a little bit later.
Yep, I remember Thunder Train, seeing them. They opened for the Runaways when I saw
But that
them.
was
That was later.
That was later, yeah.
But I saw Ready Teddy there. It was the first band I ever saw at the Rat, and that was probably the same time as you
Yeah,
guys? or-
probably, because we played a lot of gigs with Ready Teddy. So Ready Teddy was also in that era, what I call it, the pre-Rat era. They were in the same circuit as us too, and they were friends of ours. Actually, we played a lot of shows with them. But the first time we played the Rat, we played Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 sets. That's what it was like. It was just like playing a club, but because of Mickey O'Halloran talking Jimmy Harold into this, Mickey brought Jimmy to see us at Oliver's, which was right around the corner, and he said, put these guys on. And it used to be funny with us because back then you played the whole night.
Right. Yeah. I was, and also you played multiple nights too.
Yeah, you
like
played
you would be
multiple
the
nights.
headliner for like Thursday through Sunday or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. A lot of times they made you play Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Nobody wants to play Sunday.
Well, they made you play Sunday. You played Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you played
Talk
Sunday.
about a letdown.
But they needed somebody, so they made you do it, right? But we used to laugh because we played so many originals in these cover clubs, people would walk out on us, and we'd always say we'd lose about half the audience in the first set, and then the rest of them would like us. But so Jimmy had some kind of vision and put original bands in there. Now the club in Cambridge was already doing this. The club was a rough place. Over there in Central Square.
Central Square, that was very.
It was very rough over there.
Yeah, very
and,
rough at that time.
And it was, it had an upstairs club with a nice stage and a balcony, and then they had a downstairs club which was like almost like an Irish mob in there, and they also.
Did Mickey O'Halloran book that too?
Well, he got us in there. John Courtney was running the place.
Okay.
And Mickey was the connection because he booked all those clubs in town, like Brandy's and Oliver's.
Brandy's, what was that? That's really familiar.
There was a couple Brandy's.
Okay, Brandy's 1 and 2. It was
Yeah,
Brandy's 2, right?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Wait, why is that? That's ringing a bell. Where were
Well,
they?
they were big clubs down, Alston and those areas.
Okay.
And Molly's and all those places.
Okay. I remember going in them, but I was probably.
Yeah, so Mickey
pretty
was like
buzzed.
a big booker. So was Tim Collins.
Yep.
Ended up managing Aerosmith, Collins and Barasco.
Yep.
But of course, it was all cover bands, and Mickey, I don't know why he liked us. We played Revere Beach, we played Charlestown, we played all these.
What was that place in Charlestown? I remember we were talking about that yesterday.
The Blue Mirror.
The Blue Mirror? What a great name.
Yeah, one of those live things is on that website.
Yep.
Is us live at the Blue Mirror. Yeah, yeah, and it's there was like it was one of those places like in the middle of the show, it was like a bottle fight, like a bikie fight. They're throwing tables, and we just kept playing. It was like something out of the Blues Brothers movie. But
Except they weren't throwing them at you.
Yeah, except it was a lot earlier than the Blues Brothers movie. There was no cage.
I walk down the street, all the little girls here. I know I'm not so sweet, you know how hard it is. Now I've been around just to be on top. They pull me aside.
But yeah, that was the scene, and then the Rat, for us anyway, because the club was what people. I don't know. Everybody has their version of history, so I have mine, which is the correct one.
Right.
But the club was actually taking the chances on the New York bands before the Rat was. Blondie played there, Ramones played there, Talking Heads played the club. They all played the club before they played the Rat.
And before Punked, and the Dolls, were the Dolls up here?
They played Katie's.
They played Katie. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
They played multiple nights at Katie's,
Yeah,
right?
they played Katie's, and there was also a place called Plymouth Rock, up by the Boston Club.
Oh yeah.
And then it became Plymouth Rock. Television played there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't like everybody just went to the Rat. It wasn't like it was CBGB's.
We just call it Rat Tails because it's a nice catchable
yeah,
name.
When it,
but
obviously
yeah.
it happened. Though.
Yeah.
Right. But what I'm saying is that there was a lot going on. The Rat was one thing and many things.
Yep.
We didn't really look at it because we were playing other places in such a unique way. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Whereas I think the next crew that came in, Nervous Eaters, Real Kids, those bands, they were really getting their foothold at the Rat. So for them, it was more of a home. You know what I mean? It makes sense because
Right.
we were already playing a lot of other places. We were playing in New York, Max's and CBGB's. We finally had a manager by this point. He was the first guy to bring Talking Heads to Boston.
And who was your manager?
This guy Bruce Miner, he owned like a head shop distribution company, posters and head shop stuff.
Oh, cool. What, like down Newbury Street? Or
Yeah, Miner's Bruce Miner Company downtown. It was Kingston Street.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So he was like a little entrepreneur guy, good guy. Started managing us, and he started so he brought in Talking Heads who opened for us. In fact, the first time we played the Rat with Talking Heads, they opened for us. Mink DeVille,
I remember Mink DeVille.
they opened for us.
It's a Real Motherfire. That's
Yeah.
the Mink DeVille hit. That's a great song.
Yeah, so these New York bands were opening for us. Tough Darts, Robert Gordon. We opened for them in New York,
Right.
and when they opened for us in Boston, I mean, nobody had deals, and nobody was a star. And so the Rat, the club became difficult to deal with. It was a rough part of town. One night we got jumped out front of the place.
Oh, yeah.
Our bass player, Dave Gobby, got his arm broken with a crowbar.
Wow.
Yeah, Mr. Kurt was there too. He got hit with it too, but Dave got his arm broken. And, so people didn't want to play there that much, and they kind of get a bad rap.
So this is pre-punk. This is pre-punk when it
No,
was just,
they're going
or
into
just
like
right-
78. It was
78, yeah.
running parallel with the Rat.
Right.
But it started to, the Rat's in Kenmore Square,
Oh, she's talking about the club.
the club.
Oh, the club is where the violence.
Where the
happened.
violence
Okay,
was.
okay,
Yeah. So
that was Central Square was like. I mean, it's only recently become like sort of gentrified.
Right,
so-
and plus it was in that corner of Central Square, down
Yep.
by Bishop Allen Drive and
Yep.
the projects. So that's why the club didn't happen, because it was, anybody that was around then will tell you that the club and the Rat were essentially equal clubs.
Yep.
You played both places.
Yep.
In fact, we would play, this is what it was like. There was so few bands. We play the Rat, we play the club next week. The Rat, the club. Play them twice in 1 month.
Yep.
Can you imagine? And multiple nights.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Four nights at a pub.
And then they went to two bands. In 76, they started that at the Rat and the club with two bands, two alternating sets. And we started settling in more into Rat too, because most everybody was playing there. We played with Luna a lot, Orchestra Luna, but they became Luna with Steve
Yep.
Perry on guitar. Rich Berlin, right? Richard Kinshirf became Rick Berlin. We were good with them, and we played a lot with Reddy Teddy at the Rat, and we played a lot with Willie when Willie got the Boom Boom Band. But again, Willie's first gig with the Boom Boom Band was at the club. It wasn't at the Rat. It's kind
Yeah.
of funny,
That's good to set the record straight.
Yeah, and it's just funny because because Jimmy Harold was smart. He saw the big picture, whereas the club was very provincial. It was Cambridge.
Yep.
And like I said, it was kind of. Nobody can remember what East Cambridge was like, man. It was rough. So people didn't want to go there. Like, my car got burned in the parking lot. All kinds of crazy. No,
I'm only laughing because it's just.
That's what used to happen.
Yeah.
But so then the club, the Rat started to become the focus. And it was sort of like CBGB's in Boston.
Yep.
Right? And the club really started going down.
That's speaking of CBG. That's something I want to go back to. So I've heard this theme from a bunch of people when I was talking to JJ Rassler and some other people, and they said that it was a real like almost like a shuttle going back and forth between New York. Like a lot of the bands in Boston would be playing down in New York, and then those guys would come up and play
right.
here.
Yeah,
So,
right. So we would be the draw here,
yeah.
and they would come up here, so there would be a draw, and then we would go there, and they would be the draw. Yeah, exactly. It was a good deal until everybody started getting big record deals, and that all fell apart.
Yeah, but before everybody started getting big, then it
Yeah.
was like you guys used to crash at each other's like
Yeah,
places
yeah,
and stuff
and it
like
was
that too, right?
Yeah, and also the Max's was still around right at the at that point. Max's kind of didn't really. It kept going.
Yeah.
But it wasn't anywhere near as big as CBGB's. I mean, it was kind of a funny room, Max's, like an upstairs room. I mean, obviously a legendary place because
Yeah,
of
I
the
was never
Velvet
there.
Underground, right? But CBGB's definitely became the place. It was a bigger club. Yeah, so that's but we, like I said, impatient. I was never. Going back to what I said in the beginning, we kind of started getting lumped in as it became punk rock, which at first it wasn't that.
Right.
But then everything gets labeled. And again, if I was smarter or older, I would have just rode the wave. Because, Talking Heads aren't punk rock.
No, they're not.
Blondie's not punk rock.
Uh,
But everybody got called punk rock.
Pastiche wasn't punk rock.
Right,
Well,
well,
Pest was kind of punk. They were very
Right, but what
punky
I'm
in some
saying
ways,
is people that were smarter, they were all older.
Yep,
You just ride whatever trend is happening.
yep.
I was young and way too, I don't know what the word for it
Fool
is.
yourself.
Well, also passionate about what I was doing. I
Yeah.
didn't want to get labeled, and I also didn't want to be boxed into that because we weren't that.
Right.
And, we were very lyrical, melodic. Yeah, we rocked, but, we had hooks and, I always liked, the Beach Boys, the Four Seasons. I'm a big ABBA fan. I was an ABBA fan in 1974.
ABBA is always one of the guilty pleasures from a lot of rock. I love ABBA.
Yeah,
I
well,
actually saw that. It's a stupid. I review theater too, so I've seen that show like twice. Not because it's any good,
What,
but because it's a.
But a tribute show?
No, it's not a tribute show. They actually built a. They built a. What the hell's the name of that show? It's a all ABBA songs in a Broadway show. I can't
Oh,
remember the
Mamma
name.
Mia, yeah.
Mamma Mia, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's like it's worth watching just because the songs.
Yeah, we were playing ABBA.
It's really dumb.
We played ABBA covers at the Rat.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have paid to have seen that.
Well, we played them. I mean,
I probably did see it.
so what I'm saying is it was a little bit of a disconnect,
Yep.
which, again, retrospect is everything, right? So we when they made the Live at the Rat album, I didn't want to be on it because, first of all, I had no idea it was going to be so big. Obviously, I would have done it if I knew that. But I didn't want to get lumped in. I didn't really feel like we were a Rat band.
Yep.
And it wasn't a negative thing.
No.
I mean, it wasn't like this. A lot of my friends are on that album.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was then. And Billy Connors is on there, the boys, Willie, Richard Nolan, Third Rail, they're all on there. They're all my buddies. But they were going for that, and we weren't. So I didn't do it. And we were playing, we were very popular on the college circuit. We played all over New England in colleges, which a lot of those bands didn't do. We had, more of a mainstream appeal.
Yep.
Because we had a lot of harmonies, pop songs. So it became frustrating because we missed it. That's another thing you learn as you get older. The timing is everything, and the trend is on you right then, and you're the guy right now, not next month. So I was the guy for a minute. And, we opened for Roxy Music at the Orpheum in early seventy-six. We had a single.
How did that come about?
Well, Maxan, I don't know if you remember. her.
Sartori, yep,
Yeah,
from,
big
BCN,
DJ
yeah.
at BCN, right? So, back then, again, it seems funny now, big touring bands didn't have opening acts touring with them. They pick up a local act in every town.
Well, the neighborhoods ended up opening for Bowie at like Gillette Stadium or something, didn't they?
Yeah, later on, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was like probably 1979 or something like that. But
But that would happen.
yeah,
Because it was obviously cheaper than having some baby band touring with you, and the record companies didn't want to pay for it.
yeah.
So if you were at the level like the Music Hall or the Orpheum, you'd pick up a hot local act.
Yep.
So you talk to the big DJs, and who should we put on the show? They put us on the show. So that was, all the press, all the radio play, the single, we had a single, 45, sooner than most people. This is before Live.
And what was the 45?
It's called I Believe.
I believe in you, baby. It was all so in vain. I held on to something, but nothing remained. I believed in your love. You just threw me away. I believed in your love anyway. I believed in your love. You just threw me away. I believed in your love anyway.
That was before Live at the Rat. It was before any of that stuff.
So when you was getting played on like BCN and
And Cozy.
COZ, yeah, COZ. I was trying to timeline. Yeah, COZ.
Yeah.
That was right after I got out of high school. I got out of
Yeah,
high school
and
in
AAF,
74.
and then all the college stations, all of them. Yeah, so we got played a lot.
So you would think, so you're playing all over New England. And the other thing I want to ask, this is something I never ask anybody. Were you making a living doing this at
Oh,
this
yeah,
point?
yeah,
So
yeah.
you made a living in rock and roll since you were a kid.
Well,
I mean, at that point, I mean,
at that point, yeah.
that was your job.
that
It
was
wasn't
the
like
job, yeah.
a day job. Like,
Because you can make money
yeah,
then.
back in the day when you were playing a lot of
Well,
colleges.
especially
and
if you're
stuff.
playing 3 or 4 nights.
Yep.
And when you go on, we played like ski lodges and Nantucket and all these places. You'd play for a week.
Really?
Yeah, they put you up.
Nantucket.
Yeah, they put you up in like some crappy room above the place. They'd feed you spaghetti, big, and you'd play like 7 nights,
And you made dough.
4 or 5 sets a night too. Now and then we were mixing in covers sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to say you'd have to.
Yeah, but we were always doing 60s covers. We do like Psychotic Reaction, Pushing Too Hard, all those songs, which
Yeah.
were old songs then.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's basically what we would do. Yeah, but what happened was we kind of didn't see, which other people did, the trend. And even though we had record company interests, I made the other mistake of turning down indie labels. I wanted to go for the major label.
So who did you turn down?
Well, we turned down, believe it or not, Mercury had a label, Blank Records, that had Peru Boo and those people on it. Didn't
Yeah.
want to go on that. Thunder Train ended up on Jelly.
Yep.
Yeah, Greg Morton wanted to put us on there.
Now,
but-
with that Thunder Train album, I remember talking to Mark, and he said what they did is they just blasted a bunch of. They just recorded it in like a day.
Yeah.
With no engineers or that's how it sounds. It's very raw. It's a really good record, actually.
Because they had Northern Studios up there in Maynard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was the Duke and the Drivers guys.
Yep.
Some rich guys there.
It was. What's the guy's name? Some kind of. He's got a.
Joe Lilly, Lilly Pharmaceutical.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Greg Morton. But they had.
Isn't it like an earthquake something or other?
Yeah, Earthquake Morton.
Okay, Okay. I knew there was some funny.
So they own Jelly
nickname.
Records. Already Teddy put their album on Jelly
Yeah.
too. But we didn't do that either. Because I thought if we got boxed in there, we wouldn't get the major label deal.
So this is a youthful.
Right, it was, rather than looking at stepping stones, I wanted to go from this to that. And so that didn't work. And again, I had no patience, so I essentially basically just broke the band up.
So what actually broke the band up?
I
What's
just
the-
broke it up.
You just said like we're not getting what I want, so
I'm
just.
going to move to New York.
So you moved to New York. You and
I
Mike,
knew-
right?
And Michael moved there too. I knew Tom Dickey from the band Susan.
Susan was band up here, right?
They were actually on Live at the Rat too.
Oh.
Like I said, all my friends are on there. We used to put out a rumor that there was 2 pressings and one of them had Fox Pass on it, but that wasn't really true. But I got that all in the press. It was in the press. So the ghost version of Live at the Rat, that's worth more money.
Well, there actually was a Live at the Rat 2, which they actually recorded, but they never released, right?
Which we were on.
Yeah,
So's Ready Teddy. See, Ready Teddy didn't go on Live at the Rat either.
which is a shame.
Yeah. Well,
Ooh,
for
Wow
the-
was like one of my favorite.
for the same reasons,
early,
though. They didn't want to get lumped in either.
Really?
Yeah, so we were all on Live at the Rat too, but those tapes supposedly got lost. I wish they were around, but nobody could ever find them. Yeah, so Tom Dickey was in Susan. They got signed to RCA. They moved to New York. He was frustrated. I knew him. We were quite friendly, and he also had that melodic sense, and he thought I was a good songwriter, and so I joined his band.
Before we go to New York, I just want to ask something about. So I just learned this the other day. The Boston Groupie News. You were actually sort of like a catalyst to start the Boston Groupie News. That's before you left, right?
Yeah, that was
Let's just tell that story because I think it's pretty
right. So
cool.
it must have been
Because it is like sort of like the Bible of
early
Boston rock.
'76. I had this. Well, everybody was putting out these fanzines, and little 1-sheet, 2-sheet things like Xerox stuff.
Yep.
Willie was doing it. Fox.
If you
Pass
kids
was
out
doing
there, Xerox is,
Yeah.
Google it.
And well, first of all, yeah, it was cheap, and then you'd spread them around. That's you had a mailing list. You mail them out. You make posters. Third Rail had one. Mark Thor had one. So one night, I was with my girlfriend at the time, and we got this thought that we should create like a real scandal sheet. Like
National Enquirer of Boston Rock.
and like just rag on everybody. And we printed it on yellow paper, yellow journalism. And we came up with what we thought was the silliest name of all time, the Boston Groupie News, because it was supposed to be written by groupies. So it was like a tell-all column, and we wrote it in the sense that it was all scandal about all the local stars, and written like it was written by the groupies. So that's what we did.
Pretty clever.
And also, I made fun of Jon Macey.
To keep him off the trail.
Right. So, we said some silly things about people because it was a scandal sheet. And then we printed it on yellow paper, and we went around sort of sneaky and put it on, because you could do this, you could put it on like countertops in record stores. Because remember, record stores were everything. Everybody hung in record stores. New England Music City, Discount Records, all those places.
What was it, Nuggets or something like that in Kimmel Square?
Yeah, but I mean, even the commercial record stores.
Yeah, Strawberries.
Yeah, Strawberries
was really big
Discount
then.
Records, New England Music City, all the magazines were in there.
Yep.
And
Cream and all that stuff.
But I mean,
yeah.
the local ones too, Real
Yep.
Paper, The Phoenix,
Oh, yeah.
Sweet Potato, all that stuff. So we just kind of put the piles in there of this little rag as a big joke. By the weekend, because we actually played the Rat that weekend, everybody was up in arms. Did you see this thing? People had them in their hands. They were pissed off, and I thought to myself, I better not say anything because it was a joke.
Yeah.
And I immediately realized that I wasn't going to tell anybody because nobody knew. Only people that knew were me and my girlfriend. No one knew, not even the band knew. So we just kept it to ourselves. And then Ed Hood, who was like a Warhol superstar, he was he was around, he used to live with Peter Wolf, and he was sort of a scene maker.
Okay.
He was mentioned in there too. And so he actually printed more copies of it. And we, Third Rail, that's where the neighborhoods got started too. In Auburndale, Richard Nolan had a church where they used to play, everybody used to play there, a church hall in Auburndale. That's how the neighborhoods got started, because Minahan and Qualia were friends with Nolan from the neighborhood. They were obviously much younger than him. But everybody was hanging out there. It was like an all-ages place. And Ed Hood, I remember being there, it was like a couple weeks later, and now Ed Hood's on the stage with hundreds of copies of the Boston Groupie News and throwing them all over the place. Who printed this? Who did this? And, I'm like going, oh my God. I'm never going to say anything. And I never did. So not that long ago, I mean, Miss Lynn would know how long it was, maybe 6 months later. All of a sudden, the Boston Groupie News issue number 2 comes out. Because she picked it up. And it was like, I'm like, this is crazy. And it was who did issue number 1? Nobody knows. It became this legend.
And you still hadn't let on, just
I
you
didn't
and
tell
your
them
girlfriend.
until the early
people know.
2000s.
Really? Oh, yeah, I read it in Boston
Right,
Groupie
so
News,
that
actually.
was with Paul, Lovell and Lynn, friends of mine. But I finally told them, and that's when they did that story. But I kept it to myself that long.
Wow.
From like 1976 to like 2004. Because everybody was angry.
Yeah.
And then the Groupie News came out, and she got, it just kept going. It was like so weird. And I just said to myself, this is really surreal.
And it's still going.
It is. But I'm
still-
just saying, even at the time when it was, it became like a pretty, well-known fanzine that had a lot of credibility and a lot of popularity in the Boston scene. Because that was also very much a part of creating the Rat scene. Because now the Rat scene had a real, something writing about it all the time.
Right.
Because she wrote about all those people all the time. Because the Phoenix and the Real Paper also did. Jimmy Isaacs and Rory O'Connor, these writers were always in the club, so we were getting a lot of copy. But then Lynn really, with the Groupie News, really started promoting everybody. And it was really a big help to everybody.
And they still do a great job. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, with the website, yeah.
Yeah.
But the magazine itself was really, really effective. And again, I was afraid to tell them. I was afraid to tell anybody because they changed it. It wasn't, the first one. If you ever look at the first one, it's pretty nasty.
Do you have a copy of that?
I have copies of
That's
it.
funny.
Yeah.
What's funny is that if you think about the people that you're writing about too, I mean, who's more like egotistical?
They were all my
and-
friends.
Yeah, I know, but they're
Yeah,
also like
yeah,
egotistical,
yeah.
sensitive, like rock people.
It was
I mean,
fun-
that's been my impression.
it was
anyway,
funny.
over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like I said. It was like based on a Hollywood scandal sheet. All the dirt.
Yeah.
But I just made it all up.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was just really. It was supposed
You
to
baked
be.
when you come up with this idea?
Of course.
Right.
Right, but it was like a parody, right?
Yeah.
But it took on its own life. Yeah, so that was another part of my legacy, I suppose.
Serendipitous genius.
Well, I don't know.
Then you don't get paid, and you don't get
And I don't get
and you don't get credit.
And I
So
don't
you
get
don't
famous.
get famous
so,
or paid.
Yeah. So what happened? Right. So then we moved to New York. We got signed to Mercury, Polygram. Yeah, we had Tommy Mottola as a manager, a big shot guy.
Now, Tommy Mottola, he managed like Hall & Oates and stuff like
He was
that later,
managing,
right?
no, he was managing Hall & Oates then.
Okay.
He ended up running Sony Music eventually.
Oh.
He became the president of Sony with Mariah Carey and all those acts. Yeah, he was managing Hall & Oates.
The only thing I know about Tommy Mottola for a long time is his name was mentioned in a disco song called
Tommy
Chez Chez La
Mottola
Femme. Yeah, exactly.
Lives on the road.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We would sing it to him all the time.
I just remember from disco. That's the only thing I knew about Tommy. I mean, I knew he was something, a producer or something.
Yeah,
not
so he
that-
was already a big manager, and he managed Hall & Oates and a bunch of other bands.
Yep.
And he had managed Susan. So he managed Tom, and then he managed me and Tom as songwriters, made 2 albums.
This is with Tom Dickey and the
Yeah.
Desires.
And this is, this is where, for me anyway, what happened to me, and it was always there, but the drug thing just took me out.
So I'll get to that in a second. So Tom Dickey and the Desires, so people don't know. So you guys have you made a couple of albums on Mercury, right? Did you do a lot of touring? Want to talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that experience?
Yeah,
and
we
we'll
had
get into
2
your demise after.
semi-hit songs, Downtown Talk.
So let's talk about Downtown Talk. So did you write that or?
Yeah, well, all the songs with Tom Dick and Desires, Tom and I wrote together.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the whole point. We were a songwriting team. And so Downtown Talk was the lead song on that first album. That got a lot of airplay.
What was it about?
It was about drugs. I don't
What a shock.
I don't want to hear none of that downtown talk.
Okay.
Yeah. Slang, downtown talk.
Okay.
Downtown meant dope.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
going downtown. Yeah. Yeah, it's a junkie song.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but it was catchy. It got played all over the radio.
Standing in the downtown rain, talking with some friends. Gonna help me kill this pain, get 'em straight again. Maybe I can put this name and move on out of town. It's always such a vicious circle, turning round and round. Now I don't wanna hear none of that downtown talk. I don't wanna hear none of that downtown talk. Riding on a downtown train, I think I'm having fun. See my friends in Wednesday's papers, falling one by one. None of them could see it coming, crawling up their back. Jamming needles in their arm until it starts to crack. Now I don't wanna hear none of that downtown talk. I don't wanna hear none of that downtown talk.
Yeah.
And competition were played all, certainly in Boston, were big. But regional hits over, back then you had regional hits.
Oh, there's tons of regions. Some great regional music.
And the song Competition was the other one.
And what was competition about?
But it was about, it's a sort of an angry song. You want some competition? That's tough. Here we go. It got so much airplay, they played it for the Celtics at the Garden. They were playing that song as a rabble-rouser song.
During the 70s?
Well, 1982.
1982.
81.
Okay, that's when they won, too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Big competition.
Wow.
No, sports people liked it because it was, it wasn't really a sports song, but
Yeah.
but you could take it that way, right? You want
Yeah.
some competition. Really, I meant it more of, hey, screw you. But it's
That's the attitude you got to bring when you're playing sports anyway, especially
yeah.
now.
So that song, it got played. We even made it on Kiss 108 with that song.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, because it was it's more like a Joe Jackson-y sort of rock reggae Clash type thing. Remember that was kind of popular right then?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I was a big Joe Jackson fan.
Yeah, so it was that kind of thing. We had the producer for that album was Martin Rushent. He was he produced the Stranglers and the Buzzcocks.
Okay.
Yeah, so he came over, did us. He ended up producing Human League. Don't You Want Me, Baby? But that was afterwards. That was a huge hit.
Yeah.
But he,
Whole different sound, too.
well, he went in that direction.
Yeah.
But he was the more rock, Buzzcocks type thing, and then he produced us. So he gave us that kind of sound. Yeah, we toured with Cheap Trick.
Really?
We toured with Hall & Oates, of course.
Yeah.
We toured with Humble Pie, which was not really Humble Pie, but it was Humble Pie. You know, it was still Steve Marriott. We toured with, it was a weird bill. Cheap Trick was cool. We played the Midwest and hockey arenas with Cheap Trick.
Wow.
They were like at their peak.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, huge hockey
I
arenas.
still love Cheap Trick.
Because we were getting played in those places, in Michigan and places like that. You know, Tom, Dick, and Desire. So
Yeah.
we were on the radio, so they put us on, right? And we actually did a lot of New York shows with bands like Richard Lloyd, you know, from television. We toured around with those guys. Cafferty and Beaver Brown, they were regional, you know, down there, Jersey. We played those places.
Are they from Jersey?
They're from Jersey, yeah.
Okay, I was
They ended
associated
up
because
in
they played so much up here. That
Well,
I
they ended
was,
up in Rhode Island, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but they're Jersey guys that ended up in Rhode Island.
They were like the Springsteen sort of influence.
Yeah.
band,
Springsteen
yeah.
was there one night. I met him at the what is it, the Fast Lane in Asbury Park.
Oh,
Yeah, Cafferty was playing.
yeah.
And they were very friendly with them. And Springsteen went on stage. You know, it was probably, what, 80 or so? I mean, Springsteen was already a big star.
Yeah.
But it was before Born in the USA. He was a big star, but
Right.
he wasn't like, you
A
know.
megastar.
Right, it wasn't
He's an emerging star.
Well, MTV wasn't around
Yeah.
yet. But, you know, he obviously was big, and I had never seen him. And so I saw him from like here to right there, playing with John Cafferty, jamming on stage. He was pretty good, I'll tell you. And afterwards, he was just standing there, like a regular. So I just walked right over and started talking to him. He was just like talking to you. I mean, he was just acting like a regular guy, because he was in Jersey. I guess that was one
Yeah,
of his
that's
clubs.
yeah.
Just hanging out. Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I always thought when I heard John Cafferty and Beaver Brown, I said they are straight out of the Springsteen school.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're Jersey guys too, though. So it
Yeah,
makes
and they got
sense.
that, you know, that Eddie and the Cruisers hit.
Yep.
You know, so anyways, yeah, so what happened to me, and it was always there, you know, like I said, I got thrown out of high school. I had a lot of trouble. It was always trouble. I got arrested a lot when I was a teenager. So parallel to this whole music story I'm telling you was another story. And, you know, I got really caught up in hard drugs. And I think it was a secret to most people.
Really?
For me, until it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't talking about it. And,
People might catch on when you're nodding out, though, right?
well, you know, at one point I could hold on to it, and then at some point I couldn't.
Now, were you a big drinker too, or were you
Yeah,
mostly just a
big
dope
Jack
fiend?
Daniels guy.
Yeah.
But, you know, so in New York, of course, that's the place to really go down in flames, especially then with the heroin down there. So that's what happened. I ended up, you know, flaming out big time in Tom, Dick, and the Desires, and quit the band.
You quit the band.
They didn't throw me out, but I mean, you know, I quit because I was so dysfunctional.
Do we having difficulty showing up, or were you
No, I always
just a
showed
pain in
up.
the ass to work with? 'cause
No, I
you're-
always showed up. I mean, people used to say, you're the only guy I've ever seen that could be half standing up and still play fine.
There's a compliment.
Well, I was, you know, I guess it's muscle memory. I don't know what it is, but no, I always showed up. It's just, you know, I was more interested in drugs. It's sad.
That's how it works.
Sad. Sad. So that's what happened, and
So you leave New York.
so I stayed there, and you know, tried to get it back, and you know, one of the sad stories I have about that is because Tommy Mottola really liked me. You know, we kind of get along. I'm half Italian.
Yep.
He's Italian, you know, real New York Italian
Yeah.
guy. You know, so we had that,
Yeah.
and he liked me, and he felt bad for me. So you know, I had gotten like hepatitis. I was all yellow. I looked like a skinny little yellow guy, really. And I dressed myself up, you know, like as much like a rock star as I could, and went uptown to his management office, you know, because I was still in touch with them, to show him that I was doing good now. And, you know, I look back on that, I cringe because I looked awful and clearly was not doing good. And they were just looking at me with that look in your eyes, you know, like, poor kid. You know, I remember what he said to me. He said, John, you just got to get your shit together, man. And I remember getting out of that building, walking down the street, thinking to myself, how do you do that? And I just crawled under a rock after that. because it was such a defeat. You know, I knew that I couldn't fake it anymore, and everybody knew. You know, it's a joke that I used to make. You're supposed to become a junkie after you're famous, not before.
Yeah.
So I got that one wrong too. But anyways, yeah. So you know, a few years on the skids, moved back to.
So you're still in New York. You're still just, you know, you're just a dope fiend, and you're.
Yeah,
Like, what
and
are you
then
doing? How are you staying alive?
Well, you know, this is a statute of limitations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, crime.
Crime. Yeah.
Yeah. So
You're a
then.
heroin addict. You're supposed to be doing that.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
So then.
That's
so,
all my heroin addict friends did.
Yeah. So then I.
You didn't go to jail though, right? You never got.
I got arrested a bunch of times in
did
New
you?
York. Yeah, but New York was a good place to get arrested then. The prisons were so full, they just throw you back out in the street.
Really?
No, I was in the tombs and all that stuff. Yeah, kicking dope in the floor. Yeah.
That's always fun, huh?
Yeah. But anyways, I figured I would escape New York, come back to Boston and get better, and didn't really work that way. But I formed a band called The Score. That's where The Score comes in.
You still use them when you did
Yep,
the score?
yep, still using.
It's
and
funny because when I heard the name The Score, that's all I could think of. You
Well,
know,
yeah, of course.
old 70s and 80s, sort of like, you know.
The Score.
Hey, I got a score.
Yeah,
I got
yeah,
a score. Yeah.
That's why I called it The Score. You know,
Still
we
get that head.
We played like Chet's Last Call and those places. And Bun Ratties by this point was also original, because Bun Ratties in the 70s was all cover bands.
Yep.
But then in the 80s, it became original bands.
Yeah.
And Mickey, here we go again, Mickey O'Halloran with A.J. Wattel, you know, were booking the place.
Yeah.
And they're putting all original bands in there. So we, you know, The Score played there. There's another, you know, so now Mickey O'Halloran comes back into my life. And he had a great saying with me. I ran into him at the, you know, at Bun Ratties. And, you know, again, the rep was on me by this point. You know, I had the rep. And he says, you know, Macey, I'll tell you what your problem is. Half the people don't know who you are and the other half do.
It's a great line.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal that for something.
Isn't that a great line?
Yeah.
And so, pretty much true. And The Score kind of flamed out. I got in it, you know, I still had the sort of fame in Boston from Fox Pass, and then Tom Dick and Desires was big. So people came to see us. And, you know, I remember playing Chet's. I was pretty friendly with Chet, actually, Richard Rooney. And it was packed. And I didn't really want it to be packed because I was a train wreck. And I didn't want to be like a Johnny Thunders guy. I didn't, you know, like that sort of New York, you know, junkie waste kind of guy. I didn't think it was cool. I thought it was stupid. It was embarrassing. So I just gave up. That's why it's funny. I know so many people from the 80s rock scene now in Boston, you know, playing around in Hummingbird Syndicate. And I read the Phoenix, so I knew all their names, but I never knew any of them because I was somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's funny because now I know the ones that are still around, like Adam Sherman, you know, Nat Freeberg, Dan Coughlin, you know, Linda Vans,
Yeah.
you know, Eric Martin, all these guys. I know them all
All the guys
now.
you're going to be playing with in a couple of weeks.
I know them all now.
Yeah.
But I was a ghost when that sort of time. And I had met Sal Baglio in the 70s, believe it or not. I met him before he was in the Stompers. He was in a band called Sea King.
Sea King?
Yeah,
It's
I
funny,
think-
we just did him. He just did a
probably
show with
didn't
us
mention
a little
that,
while
did
ago.
he?
He didn't mention the Sea
Sal,
King, no.
Sea King, he knows. He opened for Fox Pass, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so I liked him right away, you know, songwriter. You know, I had a kinship with the guys, like a real songwriter, you know. So, yeah, I became friend. I've always been friendly with him. But, you know,
He's a good guy, too.
yeah, and we have a lot in common. So then what ended up happening was, right, I ended up getting clean.
What was your final, the thing that you said, you know, knowing people that gone through the similar situation, including myself, but I like what you said about, like, not wanting the club to be full because you don't want to see people
Yeah.
knowing what you like. I remember, like, seeing my ex-girlfriend, and I was in Alston, and I just ducked down in my car until she went by.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that's the catalyst, though. That's one of the things you end up. You
Yeah,
know,
I
that's one
avoided people on the street.
Yeah, because you just know what you would become. Was that like a catalyst for getting clean? you
Yeah,
think?
and I remember I would run into people like, you know, Oedipus had become big, you know, at BCN because he was just like a fill-in.
TBS guy, right?
Yeah, and he was a fill-in guy at BCN.
Yep.
So now he was like the program director. And,
Yep.
you know, I remember running into him at Spit.
Yeah.
And, he said, "Oh, I heard you were dead." That was the rap on me. They heard I was dead. Yeah, so.
So you weren't out at the clubs or anything anymore either. You were just like just
Well, no,
doing
I
your
would,
thing?
if I saw somebody I knew on one side of the street, I would duck. I
Yeah,
would cross.
I've been
yeah.
there.
So, anyways, yeah. So I ended up, through a series of events, getting clean in 1988, and immediately started playing music again. Cobbled together a bunch of people and called it Macey's Parade, which was kind of a silly name, Jon Macey, Macey's Parade. The drummer for the score, Mark Highlander, actually came up with the name. When we were doing the score, he said, "Oh man, you should call the band Macey's Parade." And I said, "That's a stupid name. I'm not going to call it that." And then when I got off the drugs, I thought it was catchy, so I called it Macey's Parade. Kind of a stupid name, but whatever. We did make some records, and we played all over the place through the early 90s and mid-90s. And, we played the Orpheum. We played all the big clubs, the Paradise all the time. We played all over the place.
So I just want to stop for a second. So the transition from so you go from the sound with Fox Pass, which is folk driven but still kind of rocky.
Well, it got very rocky with
Yeah.
Fox Pass at one point.
Yeah.
It was hard rock at
Yeah.
one point, yeah.
And then so you move into saying with Tom Dickey, that's pretty rocky.
Yeah, more like Elvis Costello-y, rocky, that type of rocky.
So what
rock
kind of
bile.
sound does Macy's Parade have? How does it evolve?
Well, this is where my real influences all came forward. 3 guitars, Buffalo Springfield type sound. And Birds, Buffalo Springfield. I played acoustic guitar most of the time on stage with 2 other guitar players. Ringing guitars. It was much more what you might call folk rock, even though it rocked, but more like the Birds or Buffalo Springfield, that type of sound, which really was much more what I was really about. The score was like that too.
It's interesting.
And parts of Tom Dickey and the Desires were like that. Parts of Fox Pass were like that.
Yeah.
But Fox Pass playing the Rat, you fall into that sort of bar band trap. Boom, 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 boom. Which again, I'm not putting it down, but that's not really where I was at.
No.
And so it would never make me happy, So Macy's Parade, I was actually for the first time ever fully in control of what I was doing and doing what I wanted to do. Of course, I had all that decades now of experience in the music business and hard luck and hard knocks knowledge of how to be in a band and what the business was really about. So we got a lot of reviews, we got a lot of play, but it was hard. It's hard. It was much harder in the 90s than it was in the 70s. Now there's 4 bands a night in the clubs.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is kind of good sometimes.
Yeah, but
At my age, it is.
But so anyways, yeah. So I got frustrated with that, and in '94, sort of actually formed a group with Sal Baglio, the Bittersweets, which didn't last very long. But we played together, and Steve Gilligan, the bass player from the Stompers,
Yep.
and Lenny Shea was the drummer. Because Sal was going through as many times of being frustrated with the Stompers and not wanting to do it. We kept doing it, and we made a lot of recordings, but we never put them out. We played a bunch of gigs, and then I just said, I'm just gonna build a home recording studio and see what happens. And for a while there, I sort of didn't do anything as far as original live bands.
Yeah.
I was a side man. I would play with people like Sal and other people, as a guitar player. But I didn't, and you said you saw charity shows that I was playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a lot of things like that, in a lot of charity.
Had some great lineups in those charity shows, though.
Yeah, and I did those.
I see Jamie from the Fighting Cocks.
Oh yeah,
on
Rick
the bill one
Harris,
night.
Rick Harris from Knots and Crosses, Brad Helene, Woody Geisman.
Yep.
All those guys played in those charities. I would get all my buddies together, and we played a lot of places, actually. Played East Boston, we played Watertown, church halls, charity shows. And we did a lot of shows like that, and that's what I was doing for a while. And at the same time, I was recording and writing songs with no real conception of where it was going to go. I ended up making a solo album that came out in 2004. And by doing that, I started playing live again. I literally went from about 94 to 2004 without having a Jon Macey fronted live band. I would just play other people's stuff. And that's when that interview with the Groupie News happened,
Yeah.
because it was sort of a comeback thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I made the solo album. I got Michael Roy involved from Fox Pass. I got Steve Gilligan involved from the Stompers. They became like a hot band. And then we revived it as Fox Pass, which it didn't start out that way. You know, it was from the Jon Macey solo album.
Right.
And then, you know, by playing out with those guys, especially Michael, I mean, Michael and John get together, it's Fox Pass.
Yeah.
Everybody said, well, you got to form Fox Pass again. So we did. And we played around for a number of years. We got, you know, did well. We did 2 albums.
There she is now on the front page for all the world to see. You wouldn't believe that that girl used to belong to me. Girl, girl, girl on the front page for all the world. Girl, 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 she's on the front page. Oh, my front page girl. She wanted to be so well known, have all the eyes on her. She left me here, she left me alone. Fame is what she deserved. Girl, girl, girl on the front page for all the world. Girl, 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 she's on the front page. Oh, my front page girl. On the front page for all the world. She's on the front page. Oh, my front page girl.
But again, you know, it's kind of, at least for me, it was going back in one way, and even though it was good, now I was in that box, which is fine. I'd play a Fox Pass show now if somebody wanted me to. But I wanted to do what I ended up doing. I wanted to work with female musicians. I always did. On the solo album, I had female singers. I made another solo album with females.
Who were some of the singers?
They're nobody really known.
Okay.
But then I met Lynn Shipley in a Fox Pass gig, actually, in around 2007. And at this point, I was, because I got to know Linda Vians too, and she played that night.
Yep.
I was really actively looking to find female musicians that I could form a band that had male and female musicians, because I like the sound of male and female voices.
Yep.
Because I'm big on harmonies and melody. It all goes back to my real influences. And to me, the merger of female and male voices is much different than all male voices.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I was really, I was playing in Fox Pass, but looking around. When I met Lynn, which was a total fluke, we got to talking, and she knew a lot about music, a lot of the same stuff that I liked, including hardcore country music, which you don't get a lot of people around here liking it. And she loved super pop music, because the real test for me has always been, what do you think of Sugar Sugar by the Archies? And if you don't like it, then you're not.
One of Lenny's favorite songs.
Well, I mean, if you, it just is just my test.
Yeah.
Because it's a fantastic song and it's a fantastic record. It sounds unbelievable.
Who wrote that? Who wrote that?
Jeff Barry,
Jeff Barry. Okay.
one of my heroes.
Yep.
So that night with Lynn, because we're in a bar, I just played a gig. Oh yeah, really? You like music? What about the Louvin brothers? Trying to pick something, Oh yeah, I got Charlie Louvin's new album. You do? I do too. And it's like, oh yeah, what about Sugar Sugar? I still have the 45. This is Lynn. I said, wow. She's got the Archies and the Louvin brothers? I'm like the only other person that does that. So typical of me, because I was looking to partner, and turned out she was a poet, and turns out she had been in bands, and it turned out she was now starting to write songs again with another friend, Rich Lamphere, who played that night too. She was writing lyrics. So once I found that out, I thought, okay, let's write a song together. And I gave her like an idea, and she wrote she wrote like 16 verses. I remember this. I said, well, next time I don't need 16.
4.
Yeah.
4's good.
Right, but it was good. She was just giving me a lot of material, and I wrote the song, and it was a good song. And so I was going to do another solo album, and I said to her, you should write songs with me and produce the album with me. And she said, I've never produced an album. I said, well, I want you there.
She has the ear for it too, with that kind of musical influence.
Right. And also as someone who's a guide, right? So that's how we ended up doing it. We ended up in there, actually recorded at Minahan's studio. And
The Woolly Mammoth?
the Woolly Mammoth. And so Lynn was doing backup vocals along with there was another female in there, so it was the male-female sound. And during one of the overdubs, I'm sitting in the control room with Dave Minahan, and Lynn's in the studio doing the vocal overdub, a harmony. And I'm just like soloing her voice, listening to the track, and I turned to Dave and I said, she should sing this song, not me. And she came in there and I said that to her. She said, you're crazy. I'm not a singer. I said, well, you are a singer because you're recording right now. Well, I'm not really a singer, John. I can do this. And I got it in my head that she was a singer. And so then we formed a quick band with Linda and Rich and her called Adam and Eve.
Linda Viens and
Rich Lamphere.
Okay.
You kind of, male, female, Adam and Eve. That's a catchy name, right? We only played a few shows. But then Lynn really started to get confidence, and we started writing piles of songs. And that's how we ended up forming Hummingbird Syndicate.
How long you got that been around?
Well, we made our first record in 2015. So we've done 3 albums now and a 45, an actual 45. And we're still cooking. And so by doing Hummingbird Syndicate, I was finally literally able to put together everything I ever wanted to do. Because even in Macy's Parade, I didn't have the female sound. I kept trying to bring women into that band. It just didn't work. So I finally did it.
So now you're doing Hummingbird Syndicate, and we're going to hear Gracefully. You want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, so this is our third album, recorded during the pandemic. And, it's not about the pandemic. We were already writing the songs, but, this was recorded during an odd time period. And, we were isolated making the record. And, Lynn and I read a lot of existential type songs. And this is the lead song. Right now, actually, as we do this, it's getting played all internationally. It's in all kinds of radio stations and, these days, a lot of it's internet radio,
Yep.
right? But we're being played everywhere. A lot of airplay in the United Kingdom for Gracefully. That's our lead song, the first song. And, it's a song about, if you listen to the song, it's really about facing down reality and how the smoothness of a wave over the ocean is graceful. It's graceful. It's peaceful. And, in all of this, that's where it's all going to go in the end. Really actually thinking about the end of Moby Dick. I don't know if you've ever read Moby Dick, but after the ship goes down, it's a great ending for the book. The ship goes down, the whale, everybody's dead, and the basic last line of the book is, and the waves went over it, and the sea looked like it did for the last 5,000 years. In other words, so this song's kind of about that. It's a pretty heavy song, actually.
Cool.
But it's catchy.
It's
It's catchy. It's got hooks.
You gotta have hooks.
The way it was told to me, there's only one way to be, and 1,000 different ways to see. From the cities to the wild frontiers, from a moment to a month of years, all the artifice just disappears. It doesn't matter if you're early or late. You're staring down the barrel of fate. You stand naked at the crossroads and wait. A wave rolls over the sea.
And what's our No Way to Find You about?
So that's the second song of the album. We have a video out on that one. So I sing lead on Gracefully. Lynn sings lead on No Way to Find You. I mean, we sing harmonies all over the place. And that one is it's like a spooky song. It's very atmospheric and spooky, and really about someone being lost and you can't find them. There's no way to find you. So it's like a broken-hearted love song.
On a man-made planet, universe overthrown, there's no way to find you inside the outer zone. The galaxy shatters, you slowly orbit the sun. There's no way to find you. Came round a corazon. The great wheel turns, the planet burns, blood resolves to bone. The heart will break with one mistake and turn you Whisper hello, how are you? Into the dial tone. On a man-made planet, universe overthrown. There's no way to find you inside the outer zone. There's no way to find you. Address unknown. There's no way to find you. Cape out a quarter zone.
Blow the clouds away.
So that one is, and then we have a video on that one too on YouTube. In fact, we made a tribute to Randall, the drummer, in the video. We used a lot of footage of him with us. So it kind of fits that song. So the video is very poignant because it's a lot of him. But obviously we recorded the album with him. Wasn't thinking he was going to die. So the album song's not about him. Blow the Clouds Away. Rain, rain all day and blow the clouds away. It's another song about living and persevering no matter what. That's what that song's about.
The snowcaps cry to feed the stream. The rivers rise, transition dreams. The harsh blue sky is painted over. Hear the drum singing from a distant peak. Walk in black fields of failing nights. The grinding wheel burning white. The dance won't hold. The towers crumble. Diamond boats floating out of reach. Rain, rain, rain all day and blow the clouds away. Rain, rain, rain all day and blow the clouds away. And blow the clouds away. Rain, rain, rain all day and blow the clouds away. Rain, rain, rain all day and blow the clouds away. And blow the clouds away. In darkened rooms, sleep will come. Solitude, no war is won. The castle walls will give no cover.
now you got to get back out on the road.
Yeah. So we got sidetracked by COVID and everything, and poor Randall, our drummer, Randall Lee Gibson IV, died in January, and that really sucked. We have a really good new drummer, Clark Goodpaster. He was in The Dark. You remember those guys?
The Dark?
Yeah, 80s band.
Yeah, I remember the name.
Yeah. So he's a really good drummer, very versatile. So we were super lucky.
They were kind of atmospheric, maybe.
Yeah. So we don't really sound like that, but he's
Yeah.
a very versatile drummer.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I didn't know The Dark. I was in the ozone layer somewhere, but I knew of them. And Clark, one of our friends just suggested him, and it turned out great. So we're back playing again. So. That's it kind of brings us up to date here.
Okay. All right, well, I gotta thank you for coming in today, man. This is great. This is, like I said, it's a rock and roll history for me. It's like I was there, but I wasn't always there. So just like I said, the thing that was most surprising for me is I know you from doing more acoustic stuff from later.
Yeah.
So, and then when Lenny told me, he goes, "Oh, Fox Pass, yeah, they were like early rat guys." I go, "What, Fox Pass, really?" But not because I knew you,
Right.
not because I knew Fox Pass.
Right,
And
right.
even though I was probably at some of the shows that you were at too, but like I said, a lot of that's hazy
Yeah.
for me too. So, but thanks for coming in today, man. It's been a great
All
interview.
right, great. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for listening to Rat Tales, Boston Rock Stories. Rat Tales is produced and directed by Lenny, Scolletta, and Mike Hoban, with a huge thanks to Medford Community Media in beautiful downtown Medford, Massachusetts.